entrepreneurs.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs, where we talk directly to the founders of Australian businesses, from startups and small business owners to the icons of industry. On the menu tonight, the future of food. We explore some radical ideas and look at how entrepreneurs are changing the way we view, consume, and package food. Joining me as panel experts, we have the founder of H2 Cocoa, Dave Freeman, along with Blackbird Ventures partner Samantha Wong, and the founder of Rebel Foods, Jess Miller, a sustainability advocate and the proud owner of an insect farm. So David, you are a beverage entrepreneur, but you're not quite like the standard juice manufacturer.
Yep, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, we focus on empowering people's lives to making every day healthier through fruits or vegetables that they've known but never had access to, that have got more functional benefits than just your everyday apples and oranges.
Yep. You are one of the first, if not the first, to package coconut water, and this idea was born during a hot yoga session in New York when you were 24 years old.
Yeah.
How does all of this come together in hot yoga?
It was actually one of those sort of like light bulb moments, I suppose. I'd finished my session hot and sweaty, and the teacher gives me a fresh coconut and just said a couple of words, you just can't open it. It's so hard to open. I was just like, bing, you know, like, maybe I can package this. And I didn't know anything about the beverage industry at that point in time, actually. And I walked into New York City and saw packaged coconut water just started out there. So went home and did some research, and 2.5 years later of developing innovation, learning everything I could about coconut water and the source of it and finding the right manufacturing plantation, we launched on shelf. And yeah, as you mentioned, we're one of the first in Australia and New Zealand at the time, and if not one of the first in the world at the time.
Okay, so now let's fast forward a couple of years into the future. What are some of the innovations that you have introduced to keep your products leading the way in this niche market?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. I think as your brand starts to grow and people understand what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, you really need to continue innovating. And last year we launched the world's first 100% pure long life watermelon water to complement our first to market coconut water brand, and we've launched some other different flavors and innovations of coconut water with coffee or mixed with fruit and vegetables and supplements, and you know, a different product or a different ingredient that's catered for a different specific type of demographics or consumer, all part of trying to build and educate people on drinking and hydration benefits of coconut water.
Mm-hmm. But you've got something even more unusual than just coconut water. You've got pink coconut water.
Yep,
is that correct?
Brand new product that we've actually just launched a couple of weeks ago. So right now you have consumers that either love coconut water for the health and hydration benefits, and they're on the edge of it because of the acquired taste. And we've developed this pink coconut water, which is all about taste and deliciousness, and it comes from a specific type of coconut in a small region in Thailand where we've sourced this and bottled it, and it provides a naturally pink colour, which we're about to show you.
Yeah.
And a really sort of sweet and delicious floral taste. So you can see the actual water is of a pinkish colour.
This is Jess over here, and we will get to Jess and her crickets and insects soon. But at the moment, what are your thoughts on pink coconut? Thank you.
I dig it.
Yep. So it's got a much stronger floral and sweeter taste. So
Definitely.
For those that don't like coconut water or the average pure coconut water, you know, you're going to love this.
You're going to double like it.
You're going to double like it. Yeah, totally.
Really good.
Yeah. For those that do like coconut water, you're going to even love it more.
Isn't it?
So it's always been that fine thing when you're launching something new like coconut water, and it's really new to people's taste buds, that it's hard to get people to like it, and that's also the reason why we launch different flavours, to get people, ease them into it.
What kind of process do you go through to develop these products? Like, what's your thought process?
Yeah, look, it'll vary a little bit between which fruit that we use. Another really interesting one is actually a new product, a new brand we're about to launch called H2 Nana, which is a world first 100% pure real banana water. So it sounds a bit crazy, and you probably think banana's a thick, gooey product, but bananas are actually made up of 75% water, and we developed a process to filter that 75% water out of the banana and bottle it. So it's literally like it's a liquid banana drink.
So you're definitely quite an adventurous person. We can see that. You're willing to take risks. Would you be game enough to try some crickets?
You know, if it was a cricket that was coming from my kitchen or my backyard or something like that, I'd probably say no. But these crickets, yeah, coming from Jess, I'm definitely going to try one. Putting you on the spot here, but I've got some pink coconut water to wash it down with.
Crunchy?
Actually, they're quite delicious. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, really good.
Not quite what you expected or what you expected?
It doesn't taste anything like what you would think a cricket would taste like.
Now, Jess, you are the insect lady. What I'm really fascinated in is how your passion for food, how it's more than just a collection of nutrients, it's more than just filling your belly, but it's all about bringing people together. So tell us a bit about how you started in this food area.
So I grew up on a herb farm down in the Mornington Peninsula, and you know, every weekend was all about going to the market, and it was really through my dad and the way he engaged people with conversation around herbs and cooking. And I think from that sort of experience, and then also acknowledging something that you've grown yourself and then sharing that with other people. So I think it's that the power of food and food to bring people together, which is really entrenched culturally in everything that we do. So everybody has rituals around food in every culture, and really I think it's one of the glues that bring us all together as people. So that's kind of what sparked my interest. And it was through TEDx Sydney and doing this experiment called crowd farming, where we asked everybody who was coming to TEDx Sydney to grow something or contribute something for the food that we ate on the day. And so through the programming of TEDx Sydney, we did Grow It Local, and then eventually I had a thematic program around rebel food. And that's where I first kind of got interested in what insects could do.
Tell us some of the initiatives that you've been working on in this area.
Yeah, it's all kind of food growing related. So what I'm really interested in is food systems and how growing food and distributing food, and then eventually dealing with the waste that comes from food systems can trigger new and better ways of thinking about systems. So what we really didn't want to do with Rebel Food Tasmania was just perpetuate industrial agricultural processes with a new thing. It's about trying to do things differently.
Differently throughout the whole food supply system.
About the whole system, yeah. You've really got to, I think consumers increasingly are demanding transparency around where their food comes from, how it's grown, what kind of impact it has. But also people are switching on to nutrient density, and people are willing to eat less as long as it's got a high nutrient content, as opposed to just eat to satiate their hunger. So I think we're seeing across the board a growing awareness of overproduced food and chemical food, and people are demanding that food actually has nutrients. But to get nutrients, you need healthy soil, you need good agricultural processes.
Yeah. Which brings me on to my next point about sustainability, which is really what it's all about, from paddock to plate. Being sustainable across that whole gamut. Now, there's a big focus on creating a secure food supply and being environmentally responsible. You're obviously involved in seeing how that is changing in Australia, using your insect farm as a case study.
Yeah.
Can you explore that concept? What led you to get into insect farming, Rebel Foods, Tasmania? What can we learn from that?
Yeah, so my role within Rebel Food Tasmania is very much as a collaborator. So my partner Louise Morris runs the ship down in Tassie, and Tasmania is such an exciting place for food systems because it actually exists within a food desert. So when you have this idea of food deserts, it means that the availability of high quality nutrient food at an affordable price is often not matching up with the needs and the wants of people. It also acknowledges that changes in climate put different food systems at threat. And if you think like Tasmania is an island, so it's very much in the interests of the Tasmanian economy to make sure that you're able to create small local food economies that are interconnected. And so when we started doing some research into insects broadly, we became aware that, yep, of course, there's some really great health and nutritious benefits to eating insects. But we also realised very quickly that it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to go and fix all of the problems in the world straight away. And that's, I guess, where we thought, okay, well, this isn't a get-rich quick scheme. It's actually about understanding processes and systems and finding interventions within processes and systems and building trust within a market. And the really exciting thing about what's going on down in Tassie is that we've got some of the most amazingly talented chefs who are willing to experiment with a new product that's opening up a whole new palette for gastronomy, like new textures, new flavours to play with. So it's really, really exciting.
Mm-hmm. It's time for a quick break, and when we come back, investor Samantha Wong joins us to talk about investing in food technology.
You're watching Entrepreneurs. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs.
Welcome back. Joining us on the panel is investor Samantha Wong. Now, Sam was raised by two technology entrepreneurs. She built a startup and is now an investment partner at Blackbird Ventures. She also happens to be a lawyer and a mad foodie. Not the usual combination. So, Sam, can you please explain to us how your lawyer-investor worlds collided in food?
I guess from an investment perspective, I actually arrived at my interest in food very similarly to Jess. It was actually a real awakening around how unsustainable our current food system is and how big a problem it's going to be if our global population is going to grow to tens of billions of dollars in the next few decades, which is what is happening. And it was really surprising to me to learn that 2/3 of the world's land is used to basically fuel the animal agriculture system, and it's the biggest one of the biggest contributors to global warming. It's actually more than transportation. So all of us could go and get electric cars, and it would actually do more for the environment for us all to become vegetarians. So I think that started my interest in it. It was like this very, very big problem that was facing the whole world, and it occurred to me that technology might be one of the best ways that we could actually start to solve this problem. Create more food for a growing population that's more nutrient rich, using fewer resources, so being easier on the environment, but also taking into consideration ethics and how we treat animals as part of that.
What are some awe-inspiring things that you have seen in the name of food or beverage innovation in recent years?
Yeah, I have to say what has really captured my imagination is this whole clean meat world. So I guess that the prime example of that, no pun intended, is cultured meat, or sometimes known as lab-grown meat. And it's basically the idea of taking animal cells, chicken, beef, etc., muscle, and bathing it in, I guess, what you might call like a meat brewery, for lack of a better word. And what these really are is just giant bioreactors full of all the nutrients that cells need to divide and grow. And if you leave them there for a few days, turns out that basically develops into muscle cells, and from there you can cook it and eat it just like meat, but no animal had to be killed to make it. And I guess the other area that sits alongside that is plant-based meat. So this is the idea of using molecular science and using plant proteins and making them perform like meat proteins. So it's really huge in the US, and we actually have a company in New Zealand just across the Tasman called Sunfed that have a chickenless chicken product that will start distributing in Australia early next year. So I see all of this kind of coming down the pipeline a lot quicker than people realize, and making a really big impact, sort of 90+% reduction in land and water use through both of these technologies.
One of the things that's fascinating, you mentioned it's a big thing in the USA, and in America, for example, Kraft Heinz recently poured $100 million into a venture company to invest in food tech and food innovation.
Yeah.
Now, how's Australia holding up?
It's definitely an interest of mine, and we've started investing in both the plant and the cell-based meat technologies. I mean, as an investor, you know, you're looking for big problems, but you're also looking for big markets. And it's hard to imagine a market bigger than food, and particularly if you're talking about a staple product like a meat or a dairy protein. This is something that every human being on earth needs to consume several times a day. And if you think about some of the most engaging tech products out there like Facebook or Apple, the level of engagement you get with a food product versus one of those is really quite incredible. So I think the opportunity is really huge. I would love to see more people investing in the space, but I think ahead of that we also need to see more people starting companies in this space. One of the reasons why I'm so optimistic about it in Australia is that one of the key kind of skill sets that you need, we actually have in this country. It's not just being funneled to this purpose right now. We have some of the best regenerative medicine centres and stem cell-based research institutes in the world here. And it turns out those are actually the skills you need to actually further some of these technologies. So I think the people are here. I think the money in the investment community is also here because it's a very big, attractive market. And I think the third thing that's really going for it is we have a reputation globally for clean, safe food. And we're right on the doorstep of Asia. So I think if we can build the companies and great products, we have huge export market potential for those as well.
Australia definitely is a brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's lots of countries that follow Australia and what Australian entrepreneurs have developed
Exactly.
in the food and beverage particularly.
And just knowing, I mean, I think just knowing exactly how something is produced, trusting the brand behind it is a huge part of it. I think one of the big pluses of the cultured meat is it's a bioreactor is a sterile environment. So it's possible that we could have salmonella-free, E. coli-free, totally traceable food chains through this system. I think it's very exciting.
Talking a bit more broadly about food waste and even packaging and the role that packaging plays in that. What are your views on packaging innovation?
Yeah, look, I think it really comes down to the product and the consumer that's consuming your product. I mean, we like to produce everything in a packaging that is sustainable or at most recyclable as possible for that product. And at first, you know, with packaging, you need to first understand, and when you're developing a product, you need to first understand who your exact consumer is and what are their values as a consumer, and are they really cautious of drinking out of plastic or out of glass? What would they prefer? And take that approach, and then align that with your values as a business to ensure that you're developing something that is, you know, the future of sustainability and environmentally friendly.
Jess, have you observed or experimented, considering you're doing bugs and things like that, with
we call them insects.
Insects, sorry, correction.
Bugs are bacteria.
Okay. Yeah. Innovative reuse of food.
The impact of China no longer taking waste from Australia is massive.
Yeah.
It is like the biggest crisis and the biggest opportunity that nobody is talking about. Our governments are scrambling at the moment to figure out how to actually recycle. There's lots of questions around whether the products that you do put in the yellow bin actually end up being recycled. So I suppose when we're thinking about our food system, not only are we thinking about organic waste from the point of view of it feeding our insects, but we also have to consider the rest of the supply chain. So if we can provide the product in as little packaging as possible, brilliant. And I think we have to sort of perhaps change the conversation around what we as a community and what we as a society are willing to do to overcome the convenience and disposability of products and engage a little bit more with it as a ritual. So, you know, we've seen people bring their own coffee cups, which is fabulous, but what's the next extension of that? Like, at what point will people bring their own containers, kind of like the old school co-op model?
Yeah.
I think that's really exciting. I think there's a lot of opportunity to explore that.
Okay, well, it's time for another break, and when we come back, we'll be talking 3D printed food. Yes, it's weird, it's wonderful, and it's most likely coming to a restaurant near you. Something you don't want to miss.
You're watching Entrepreneurs. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs.
Welcome back to Entrepreneurs. It's time to talk food technology and in particular 3D printed foods. Now chefs and scientists are using 3D printers to create delicate sweets, geometrically designed meats, and the list goes on. Here's a short video to give you a sneak peek into 3D printed foods.
Come on! I say you gotta get it rolling. Get it right. Make it happen. Keep it tight. Be electric. Come alive. You can do it. Make it try. Woo. Make it try.
Okay, what was your opinion on that? Using a printer style machine to create really novel looking food products. If you're an investor, Sam, which you are, is this a gimmick or is it here to stay?
Definitely 3D printing is being explored as a possibility in the clean meats space. So, you know, everything starts kind of buggy and slow, and with technology improves in quality and speed. So we'll see.
Some of the ink that you saw in that video clip is actually created by food wastes. So they've collected carrot puree, for example, or pulp that's usually wasted, created it into a powder, and then
awesome.
reconstituted it to create these little lizards.
That would be one of the first questions, like what's in it? Yeah, you can make it look good, but what's in it?
What's in it? So the ink is actually quite fascinating, and there's a lot of opportunity to use 3D printed foods for, say, specific populations, like the aging population, where it's nutritionally created food products that look like a steak, not just slop on a plate.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sam, does food technology mean less fresh food and more technologically developed foods?
I mean, I think it's a really loaded question because, you know, I think what we think of as fresh today is maybe not really as fresh as we really think. And, you know, certainly the areas that I'm sort of interested in, like vertical farming and lab grown, clean meat or cultured meat, you know, what could happen is that, you know, people have personal bioreactors in their kitchen and they're preparing meat in their own home. You can't get fresher than something that's literally prepared in your own home, and ditto with vertical farming. So I think, you know, I think we've been really successfully sold the idea that our food is really fresh. I think increasingly consumers are aware that tomatoes are 6 months old and they're, you know, ripening in the, you know, on a supermarket floor days before they walk in. So I think that there's a myth deconstructing that needs to happen there.
Jess, you were actually involved in a food presentation on food innovation at TEDx Sydney.
Yeah.
What's your view on this?
I think for any innovation to go mainstream, you have to build trust with people, you have to make a strong case, you have to demonstrate how it fits into people's lives, and then you also have to be incredibly transparent with the systems and the processes. And I think that's where the trust in the large monopolistic agricultural processes is really breaking down now. It's heartbreaking to go into a major supermarket, and despite the fact that everything looks, you know, princess perfect on the rack, it's all covered in plastic, and that's a story that I'm really unhappy with. I think that's a story that people are increasingly becoming switched onto. So there's the opportunity, I think.
What are your top predictions for 2019? What will we be seeing more of, or what will we be seeing less of?
Hopefully we'll be seeing more ferments, we'll be seeing more local food economy, and we'll be seeing more transparency around food labelling, and hopefully less plastic.
Less plastic. What about you, David?
Look, I think consumers want more out of what they're purchasing. So when they're buying something, they want an added functionality to it. So whether it's something like a collagen or an extra protein or a hemp or turmeric, whatever it is, some sort of functionality to it, to the added product that they're buying.
And your perspective, Sam?
I think we're going to see some of these cultured meat products hit the market in a very limited way. So it might be a one-off pop-up night at one restaurant in San Francisco, for instance. But I definitely think the public and journalists will be able to taste more of this.
Thank you. So that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for this fascinating discussion. On the next episode of Entrepreneurs, Jack Delosa puts medical technology under the microscope. Now, it's a sector that has the potential to add 28,000 jobs and $18 billion in GDP to Australia's economy by 2025. That's all we have time for tonight. I'm Dr Anneline Padayachee. Thanks for watching and good night.